Sicily, for some is a place of dream, for some is enigma, and for some is a way of life. Every year, Sicily is visited by hundreds of tourists who wish to find out about its history, culture, and traditions. But the whole thing is about that there are different traditions. It is not proper to mention some people in here out loud. What is the genuine tradition of blade weapon on Sicily? Police reports and official documents imply one thing, while modern martial artists demonstrate completely different things. It is not meant to play around police protocols. When one is attacked, that happens in a blink of an eye. One doesn't even notice where from and how did the attack happen. Where from did things come to the island that have nothing to do with the Sicilian tradition itself? Once I did ask my friend how would one differentiate a real master from not a real one, and his reply was by the number of dead bodies. Foremost investigation of the newspaper Unsolved Crimes. What is the truth and to whose advantage is the lie? Indisputably, Sicily is the place only of its kind. Its history, architecture, sightseeing spots keep one on the edge of their seat. But very much so, Sicily is distinguished for its enigmas, mysteries associated with organized crime, duels, and the blade, which in here is brought to the level of religion. At the present time, Sicilian tradition does still exist, it develops and blossoms out. Amongst our fellow men, quite a few are interested in martial arts and visit this place to learn blade work. Today, Sicily has got everything necessary so that any person could come, arrange things with a master, and learn blade work from him. I'm not a master of martial arts, but as a journalist, criminologist, chief editor of Unsolved Crimes newspaper, I have decided to find out what is the genuine Sicilian tradition of blade weapon. There was a small auditorium type of place where Chris Harvey was jumping around in undergarment and was thrusting blade right in the heart. He didn't like mess and clothes. They liked killing. About 1,000 of people were murdered in Palermo and its suburbs in about 2 years of war. They desired to kill. They liked it. Keep your eye out for position of the blade. It triggered my attention as a journalist. It turns out to be strange. Sicilian masters demonstrate how a fight with a blade weapon has to be conducted in their opinion. One may see their approach in numerous demonstrations. So, the most interesting thing is that throughout the duration of 20th century, the Sicilian Mafia, which was recognized as CosaNostra, kills its own victims using completely different type of grip. That is exactly what struck me, and I got into investigation of this subject. Now you may see on your screens museum pieces of knives from Palermo. It is obvious for an expert that these blades are meant exactly for that grip which had been used by Sicilian Mafia in US. I have gathered a whole library for an investigation which consists of police reports, documents, and photo facts of different periods. For instance, on the photo you see now, which was made by police in operational footage, there is a knife hidden in right hand. Obviously that the Sicilian handles the weapon with that particular grip which we have discussed earlier on. And this is only a part of the case study. But even by now it becomes clear that knife work which is being demonstrated by Sicilian masters today is not in compliance with museum pieces and neither with police protocols. Sicilian Mafia, that even FBI was not able to stand against, used absolutely another type of grip and different system of blade work. For expositional purposes of why things turned out this way, I have decided to contact an acknowledged expert in the field of knife fighting, my friend, my teacher, my mentor, Dr. Maitza. How so? In protocols, archives, documents were shown have a certain knife grip, but when we look at what is being shown by modern Italy in terms of teaching knife fighting, we do not see that very type of grip. Why is it so? Most of the people who would look at all this, they would have said, even if it is the case, it is better anyways. It is better this way as it is more safe for community. Meaning that ones who teach safe things basically are considered to be the right ones. In other words, ones who teach real things, dangerous things, they are not right. It is not advantageous for the state, and actually for any state. We are not talking exactly about Italian state, Bulgarian, German. For any state, it would not be advantageous if the civilians would know how to handle a cold weapon. But that's a paradox. It's illogical, as one will encounter people who know how to handle the weapon in a dangerous way, and if one is learning how to handle it in the safe way, well, that's the whole point. You know, I have asked once my friend how to distinguish between a master and not a master. And he said, he's in his 60s. He's got the death in his eyes. And so he stands there, looks at you, and says, by the number of dead bodies. Well, here are two different versions. But which one of them is a true one? There is what I can see with my own eyes on Sicily today. The way respected masters and people demonstrate their own view of Sicilian system of blade work. The other version is expressed by Dr. Maitza. Whereas he is my teacher and mentor, law is a law, journalism is a journalism, and no doubt the truth is the truth. And not until I examine the information on my own, I can come to a certain conclusion. For this reason, for now the scoreline is 0-0. In the first place, I start thorough examination of police protocols and photo facts, and each of you may do the same thing on your own. At the end of the day, in order to draw conclusions, you have to have grounds. At the first stage, I can see documentary support and affirmation of what Dr. Maitza has said, and I do not see even one photo fact that would support the version of today's Masters on Sicily. Thus, the score is 1-0 in the favor of Dr. Maitza. As a matter of fact, there are not many Masters on Sicily as it may seem to you. And the Sicily itself is divided into two parts, the left and the right one, Palermitan and Catania ones. When we talk about the right side, there is reasonable heavy mixture of different systems that exist. Mostly, the systems are ones that are hard to justify from a historical point of view. To put it in other words, there are acknowledged masters. For one, Rafael Ermino, a master whom I respect very much, who is a worthy person, a worthy knight. I have visited him a few times to talk about Sicilian tradition of blade work. You know, there were many people who wanted to learn from Rafael how to do knife work. But I wanted to take out more of history, culture, and certainly I was interested in technique as well. But it did not interest me as much as culture history, and traditions did. He's 74 years old, he has lived almost an epoch. So he conveyed the way he saw things, the way he saw the knife work was taught. Moreover, he doesn't conceal that the system he teaches is his viewpoint on Sicilian system. On the second stage, I have decided to look into the archives and old excerpts from the newspapers. Needless to say, any tradition would leave its trace, particularly, but not exclusively, on the pages of mass media, and CosaNostra being of particular interest to it, as well as a profitable topic to be covered. As you remember, US intelligence services were out for this organized structure for 6 decades. And if not for a betrayer, Giovalaci, presumably we might have not known about such notion as CosaNostra up until now. As a result, I got the following. Keep your eye out for the way knife is held in newspapers and illustration. As it is seen on the second stage version expressed by Dr. Maltsev gets one more validation. Well, for the time being, 2-0 in favor of Dr. Maltsev. As for myself, I'm a scientist, researcher, and needless to say, my first visit to Sicily was on researching different viewpoints about Sicilian system, different ones. There were ones that have said that they belong to 200-year school. There were ones who said that they do not know how old is their school. Others said, we were just taught this way and we don't know the other way, and that's it. Well, during my first visit, I was a guest at a certain place in Sicily. And people in there demonstrated me the way they handle an edged weapon. And as for me, it looked entertaining and not effective. Prior to this, I had a 3-year of experience in Palermo. And I started to look for this topic in Palermo. I started working on it from a scientific point of view. And in the result of favorable circumstances, I was able to find 2-3 figures who have actual understanding of knife fighting in Sicily. One of these persons, I'd say, a greatest master in blade work. Progressively, in the course of several years, I was trying to look into this problem from different angles. And as a result, I was able to fully restore Palermitan system of knife fight. And the system on its own is exceptionally mortal. It is what you see on the police protocols. In the framework of investigation, I have decided to conduct quite difficult criminalistic experiment. There is a notion which is called collateral skill in criminalistics. Here what it means. Let's assume that one has been killing throughout his life by means of a knife. If he is given at a certain point of time firearm instead of a knife, where would he fire? Criminalistic conclusion shows that one will be firing the same targets on body as it was with the knife. As he is ensured, he's been effective in task by delivering knife strikes exactly to those spots. It is effective and he doesn't have any doubts in it. It's time to look at police protocol photos. Gunshots are exactly the same spots. Neck, throat, solar plexus, under ribs. All in all, there are 8 spots. But why 8? And what could it be related to? There are 8 strikes of Franciscans order monks that are all over in Palermo. In times of the Carl V, the Spanish king of Sicily, he brought along Franciscans order monks. Later on, these monks were trained on the island and we were able to restore all 8 strikes of Franciscans order monks. They used to employ them to instill the order. Later on, they have used them to make things right as well as in Madrid common area, at a later time all over Spain, on occupied territories that were turning into Spanish ones throughout expansion of Conquista. For this reason, it cannot be said that Palermitan system is limited to 8 strikes. This is not the case. But we see that common people have in their foundation, in their system, these 8 strikes. They are basic strikes. What grounds do you have about Franciscans having used blade weapons? Maybe there are documentary evidences, photo facts. Well, Palermo itself, together with provinces, is an exceptional place. If one goes to Sicily, it is obvious that it dramatically differs from the other Sicily that I've shown. So here's the legend in Palermo about people who lived with justice. They were named as Beati Paoli in Palermo. There are numerous books in Italian written about enigma of Beati Paoli. And I should tell you that it's impossible not to recognize Franciscan monk in Beati Paoli. I mean, there's no way. Black robe, Franciscan one. They used to be called inquisitors. And as you know, Franciscans order monks were the foundation of Inquisition. If you read several books on the topic, I'm telling you there's no way not to recognize the monks of Franciscans order. I mean, it is very, very hard not to recognize them. When you see the monk of the Order Minorium Capuchinorium, it seems to you that they're different from the order of Franciscans. But in fact, the order of Capuchins is the third branch of the Franciscans order. Palermo has got the catacombs of Capuchins and monasteries of Capuchins as well. Experiment conducted on collateral criminalistic skill provides one more confirmation of validity of Dr. Marx's version. Score is 3-0. In such a case, here's the next question. Where did knife fighting system, which is being demonstrated by masters on Sicily, come from? As nothing happens just because. There can be different approaches. One can research and study masters. The tendency itself can also be researched. As for tendency, you see the way it is on the right side. The technique involves bouncing, which is not seen in Palermo. They make this type of knife moves. You may see different videos of different masters. Videos of Giuseppe Bonacorsa as well. Pay attention that nearby there's a Neapol. We drive by the territory. And there is Calabria Puglia nearby as well. Bright representative of Calabrian Puglian school in there is Luciano Triminga with his school. One may take a look at the techniques of Luciano Trimingo and see the techniques with pass, wide moves, and these are echoes of Calabria Puglian. It has come to the territory of Sicily approximately several decades ago. Not even centuries ago? No, decades ago. I think that situation was the following. There were a lot of people who wished to master knife fighting. The information on this was scarce, and that was a school of Trimingo, not far away. And its techniques, in most of the cases, not in all, came to this territory. Needless to say, of course, if you ask any Sicilian master what relation has his school to Calabria and Puglia, he would say that he's clean Sicilian and that his techniques are genuine to Sicily. However, even visually, a indifferent person would notice that it is a trend of any school which is in there. There is an attempt to be called a dual type of school, meaning that it is a one-to-one fight, which is not about killing technique. It is a dual one. The grip is always same. This type of grip. Yet another confirmation of Dr. Matsev's words. Now you may see on your screens the demonstration of knife fighting technique of Luciana Triminga's school. It is an acknowledged school in Puglia. Pay attention to moves and approach to knife handling techniques. Now again look at the demonstration of Ciccio, taken from a documentary People of Honor, dedicated to the study of Ndrangheta, large organized crime group. So one takes a rope and now it can be used in any way. And now everything falls into a place. Well, firstly, I have to acknowledge that my teacher and mentor Dr. Matsev was absolutely right. Traditional Sicilian system of knife handling has nothing to do with what is being shown by masters on Sicily. However, this does not exclude the fact that there are people on Sicily who are knowledgeable of real tradition. Simply, this knowledge is preserved in closed communities. Things that are being taught on Sicily today came from mainland of Italy. Mostly it is Puglian line, which had nothing to do with Sicilian tradition. As for traditional system, one may get acquainted with it by looking into history of Beati Paoli, Order of Franciscans, and activity of traditional Sicilian Mafia. And certainly there is another way as well, which is to visit Sicily, obtain Sicilian families' trust with your deeds, and get acquainted with Sicilian system, but inside the family. The way you imagine learning how to handle a knife, the way you see it on TV, on internet, there's no such thing as this. No one teaches this way. In other words, if we take the system itself, it consists of 20 blocks plus 1. And every box of the system is a certain volume of techniques. Scope of conceptualization, scope of principles, scope of motives, scope of skills that are necessary. This one is a Spanish flat blade, quite widespread on Sicily. Sicilians work especially with this type of blade. This technique has got an answer to any question. One has to understand that it went through historical periods and it was not taught. It is a part of a lifestyle. As you remember, goal object of the program was to find out what is truth and what is falsehood. People who try to study Sicilian blade tradition have to have a right of choice of what to study. To study all known technique of the right side of Sicily, or the Palermitan one, the genuine Sicilian technique which is renowned for its uncompromising effectiveness. the whole point in what is the task of an individual. This is all what I have intended to show you this time, but as before, we will be sharing with you an objective and most importantly, independent information and results of our investigations. Very soon we will come back to Sicily and to its traditions, history of martial arts and blade weapons.